It was an ordinary day at UA. At least, as ordinary as life could be for the students training to become pro heroes. The sun was shining through the windows of the classroom as everyone gathered in their usual lesson. You sat next to Kirishima, who was your usual best friend to sit next to. He had become your best friend over the past few months. His signature red, spiky hair and that toothy grin made him a presence you couldn't ignore. Today, though, you felt something was off. He'd been unusually quiet. Kirishima noticed you staring at him from the corner of his eye. "Hey, what's up?" he asked. Breaking the silence, his voice, as always, had a friendly and upbeat tone. "You're awfully quiet today, Kiri," you replied, tilting your head. "Are you feeling okay?" Kirishima gives you a thumbs up with his usual grin. "Yeah, totally fine. Just, a little tired. That's all." His words seemed reassuring, but you could tell by a slight frown on his face that something was bothering him. Still, you didn't press with him further. The class went on, and eventually, they announced a training exercise for the day. Everyone was excited. After all, training was one of the best parts of UA for most students. You, Kirishima, and a few other classmates headed to the training grounds, ready to face whatever challenge was in store. Little did you know, things would take a very unexpected turn. The exercise was simple enough. Everyone was paired up for combat, using their quirks to either defend or attack, and you find yourself matched with Kirishima. Much to your relief, as much as you liked working with others, there was something special about teaming up with him. His hardening quirk complemented your own abilities perfectly. The battle started, and with all the usual excitement, with Kirishima charging forward, eager to take on his opponent, you stood behind ready to support him, keeping an eye out for any unexpected moves from your opponents. But just as you prepared to step in with your own quirk, something strange happened. A flash of light imploded from the opposite side of the training field. You had turned, squinting against the blinding light. Before you could even react, you saw Kirishima stagger, his body freezing in place. There was a brief moment of confusion before he collapsed to the ground with a soft thud. "Kirishima!" you yelled, rushing to his side. "Are you okay?" He groaned, rubbing his head, but there was something terribly wrong. His body was shrinking? His muscles were softening and his hair wasn't as spiky as it usually was. And within seconds, the 16-year-old boy you had known for so long had turned into a baby. You froze in shock, your mind trying to process what the hell just happened. Kirishima, your Kirishima, was now an infant? His tiny hands reaching out for you in confusion. His bright red hair, which was usually spiky and wild, was now soft and unkempt. His big, wide eyes stared up at you with an innocence that you'd never seen before. "What happened?" you stammered, looking around at the others for help. A few of your classmates, including Todoroki and Bakugo, came over as well. They seemed to be trying to figure out what happened. Bakugo scowled, looking between the two of you. "What the hell is this?" he yelled, his usual temper flaring. "Who the hell did this?" "I don't know," you exclaimed, panic rising in your chest. "He was fine 1 minute, and now this happened. We need to get him to Recovery Girl." "Calm down," Todoroki said, his voice steady as usual. He kneeled down beside baby Kirishima, who was crying in confusion. "We'll take care of this. You need to stay calm." You took a big, deep breath, trying to compose yourself. As much as you wanted to freak out, you knew to remain calm, for Kirishima's sake. You scooped him up as gently as you could, cradling him in your arms as you began to move towards Recovery Girl's office. Kirishima's tiny form was surprisingly light in your arms. His little hands grasped onto the fabric of your uniform, letting out a soft coo, his baby voice sounding even more innocent than ever. His usual bravo was gone, replaced by a vulnerable side of him that you had never seen before. "Don't worry, Kiri," you whispered, trying to comfort him. "We'll get you back to normal. I promise." Recovery Girl, as usual, was quick to act when she saw what happened. She immediately went to work, using her healing abilities to assess the situation. But after a few minutes of careful examination, she looked at you with a somewhat grim expression. I'm afraid it's not as simple as just healing him, she explained, tapping her cane thoughtfully. It seems he's been hit by a quirk that temporarily regresses him to an infant state. There's not much I can do for him, but I'll keep an eye out for him. It should wear off eventually. But how long will it take? You stutter, your worry clear in your voice. Hard to say, she admitted. It could take anywhere from a few hours to a couple of days. Just be patient and make sure he's comfortable. You nodded, your heart sinking. This is going to be a lot harder than you anticipated. As the days went on, you found yourself completely focused on Kirishima's care. The rest of the class had gone back to training, but you just couldn't bring yourself to go back when you kind of had a baby by your side. Kirishima in his baby form was surprisingly easy to take care of. He was quiet for the most part, except for the occasional gurgle or coo as he clung to you for comfort. His big round eyes that followed your every move. Couldn't help but smile at how cute he looked in his tiny state. Hey there, Kiri, you said softly, bouncing him gently in your arms. I bet you never imagined a day like this, huh? Kirishima babbled in response, his little finger curling around your shirt. You chuckled, though there was still a trace of anxiety in your chest. As much as you tried to keep things lighthearted, you couldn't help but shake the feeling that something was missing. The Kirishima, the one you knew, the one with a strong sense of justice and the tough exterior and the wild energy, just wasn't the same anymore. But you were determined to be there for him just like he'd always be there for you. As the hours passed, you stayed close by his side, feeding him and changing him and soothing him whenever he got fussy. It was exhausting, but you didn't mind. Kirishima was your best friend, and you weren't about to let him face this alone. Eventually, the night fell and you found yourself sitting on the couch in the common room, still cradling a baby Kirishima. He had fallen asleep in your arms, his tiny body curled up against your chest. You had gently stroked his soft hair, the familiar spikiness, so now nothing more than a cute fluff. Though, a thought hit you suddenly. In this moment, with him right now, so small and vulnerable, you realized how much he actually meant to you. I mean, you'd always cared for him, but this was something different. He'd been by your side through thick and thin, and now you were here, taking care of him in his time of need. You looked down at him. In a sleeping form, you whispered, I'll always protect you, Kiri, no matter what. You didn't know how long it would take for him to return to normal, but for now, you would cherish these moments, these baby steps as you helped him through this strange ordeal, but no matter what, you were in this together. But it had been almost 2 days since then. Kirishima still in baby form, and during that time, you'd barely left his side. It was strange, comforting, and at times overwhelming, but through all of it, you couldn't help but bond with the tiny version of himself in a way that you never had before. Every time you looked at him, it was impossible not to feel protective, as if you needed to shield him from the world. Kirishima had spent most of the past 2 days being calm and content, but every now and then he would get fussy or teary-eyed. You would soothe him with gentle words or a toy, watching as his bright, wide eyes would follow your every move. The more time that passed, the more you grew attached to this version of him. You knew he was still in there, still the energetic, brave, boisterous Kirishima you cared for, but this tiny, defenseless form had certainly had a smudge of innocence to him that made it just have this need in you to protect him. You didn't even know why. That morning, you prepared a bottle for Kirishima. You couldn't help but sigh. These days had been long, and while he was a joy to care for, you missed seeing the real him. You missed the Kirishima who would crack jokes and share stories and excitedly drive into any challenge that came his way. Listen, you liked Kiri, but being a teen mom wasn't exactly on your list yet. Come on, Kiri, you muttered, gently rocking him. I know you're in there. You gotta wake up soon. Please? Kirishima gurgled softly, his tiny hands grasping at the edge of your shirt. He seemed content, but his baby talk was far from what you were used to. You couldn't help but chuckle, even though your heart still ached for the day that he would return back to normal. You were getting tired of being a mom. Later that day, you were sitting in the common room once again, the warmth of the sun filtering through the windows when something strange happened. Kirishima, who had been happily playing with his stuffed animal in his lap, suddenly froze. His little hands clenched into fists and his body stiffening. His face scrunched up in concentration, and for a moment, you felt like the world around you held its breath. Kiri? What's wrong? You asked, concern raising in your voice. You leaned closer to him, trying to make sure he wasn't in any kind of pain. But before you could even react further, there was a bright flash of light. You blinked, suddenly, and the tiny infant that you were holding on to was gone. Instead, the familiar, spiky-haired, red-faced Kirishima you knew was sitting there in front of you, very wide-eyed and extremely confused. Whoa, what the? Kirishima blinked rapidly, his hands reaching for his head, as if trying to understand what the hell had happened. He looked up, seeing you, and then his face lit up in recognition. YN, what happened? You couldn't help it. A flood of emotions hit you all at once. Relief, joy, and the overwhelming need to laugh and cry. You didn't waste any time. Without a second thought, you threw yourself into his arms. Oh, Kiri, you exclaimed, your voice thick with emotion. You're back. Oh my god, I'm so glad you're okay. Kirishima blinked, his face flushing as he awkwardly returned the hug. What's going on? I was just a baby, right? He pulled back slightly, looking down at his hands to see if his reality had returned. Whoa, this was like crazy. How long was I like that? 2 days, you said, laughing through your tears. 2 days of me taking care of you when you were, well, a baby, and now you're back. He scratched his head, trying to process that. 2 days. Man, I feel kind of weird. I don't remember much. 1 second I was fine, and then bam, I'm a baby, and that was wild. You smiled, warmly, feeling a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. You looked back at him. You're back to normal, and that's all that matters. Kirishima chuckled, running a hand through his now spiky hair. Yeah, I guess so. Damn, I didn't realize how much I missed my own body. He stretched out his arms and legs, looking like he was getting reacquainted with his strength. Thanks for sticking with me, YN. You really didn't have to do all that. You shook your head. No, of course I did. You're my friend, and I care about you a lot. You couldn't quite make his gaze, feeling the words awkwardly between the two of you, but the sincerity in your voice was unmistakable. Kirishima seemed to notice your tone, his usual playful demeanor softening just a bit as he smiled at you, a gentle, appreciative smile that made your heart flutter. I care about you too, YN. You're always there when I need you. Who else would have put up with me when I was acting all... He paused for a moment, scratching his face up in exaggeration. Baby-like. You rolled your eyes with a grin, trying to mask the fluttering in your chest. You weren't that bad. You were actually pretty cute. But I'm just glad you're back to normal, Kiri. Kirishima raised an eyebrow, a grin creeping onto his face. Oh, you think I'm cute, huh? Well, I've been told I had that effect on people. He nudged you with his elbow, a playful glint in his eye. You laughed, pushing him away lightly. You're so stupid, Kiri. Always the same, huh? He chuckled. You know it. But hey, let me make it up to you. I'll treat you for dinner tonight. You deserve it after you did all that baby duty you did for me. You couldn't help but smile. Yeah, it's a deal then. But don't think this means you're off the hook for the next time something crazy happens. Kirishima grinned, flashing his trademark smile. Deal. But next time, I'll be the one taking care of you. As you two laughed together, the strange days of Kirishima in baby form seemed to be like a distant memory. But mattered now that he was back, and everything felt bright again. You didn't know what the future would hold, what challenges and adventures, and what you and Kirishima would be up against. But what you did know was you never wanted to be a teen mom. Ever. Ever, 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 ever again.